use of both, like they have a working title, you know,
Yeah.
like a whole.
So the
Multi-paragraph
is
description.
other than sounds, the science and soul of local jazz.
Very cool.
So it's an ethnography of musicians who work across local traditions and how it's evolved and described their musical process.
Great.
One of my interlocutors said it really well. I was really glad to just like one thing.
performance. And if you must exit, that you wait until applause. Thank you, and enjoy the performance.
Good evening, friends. Thanks for coming out on a chilly but really beautiful night in Miami. My name is Phil Harling, and I am the director of the UM Center for the Humanities. And this is the first time I've ever been on a stage in Frost. And I'm super excited because I've wanted to collaborate with my friends in the Frost School of Music ever since I became director of the center, which is based in the College of Arts and Sciences, these 3 years ago, because it was very quickly impressed upon me by my own attendance at Frost events that this is a rare jewel in the UM firmament. And it's really great to be partnering with you all this evening. I talked to my good buddy David Ake, who until recently, of course, was chair of the Department of Musicology, and I'd attended a couple of the annual lectures, the Kelley Memorial Lectures put on by the Department of Musicology, and I went to David and I said, why don't we pool our resources just to do something particularly special? Because I have this thing called the Stanford Endowment, named after Henry King Stanford, who was UM's longtime president, I think the third president in UM's history. I do a lot of stuff with historians like me, anthropologists, but never a collaboration with the good folks in Frost. And so I thought, let's pool our resources and find somebody extra special to put on a talk with. And David said, I've got just the guy for you, and that's my colleague, Mark Lamano, who knows another guy. And so that's why we're all here this evening. And so I want to thank Frost. I want to thank the Department of Musicology and their chair, Melvin Butler. I want to thank my own colleagues, Christina Larson, the assistant director of the center, Elizabeth Hernandez, our office manager, and Prashanti Pathak, our grad fellow, who worked very hard on our end to prepare for this evening. But mostly I want to thank Mark for being the go-between, the contact, my new friend, contacting Vijay to put on this amazing show this evening. So without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I want to present to you ethnomusicologist, jazz historian, and pianist, Mark Lamano.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Great. My name is Mark Lamano. I am a professor of musicology and anthropology here at UM. It's my third year here. My first time hosting or introducing the department's annual Robert Kelley Memorial Distinguished Lecturer. I'm going to teach a lot of my classes by telling stories, so I'm going to tell you a quick story. I am an ethnomusicologist and a jazz historian and a pianist. And the road that I took to being all three of those things at the same time was partly inspired by the person that you're going to hear from tonight. Vijay is a bit of a trailblazer, academically speaking, musically speaking, and as someone who's, I'll say, only slightly younger than he is, it's been really important for me as my career has developed to have people like that to look up to point to and say, you know, when I get older, I hope I can be a little bit more like Vijay Iyer. Vijay and I have known each other since the first time I moved to New York in 2005. The first time we worked together, I was a postdoc at Swarthmore College. I put together a symposium on improvisation in the liberal arts. He participated in the roundtables, the class visits, gave a guest lecture, and also performed some. Tonight, he's going to share a little bit of his music with you and share some of his thoughts from his academic career. I'm really excited to bring him here to my new home at and I'm really glad that you all are here with me. I have the official introduction, and then I'm going to bring him out. So for those of you who may be new to Vijay's work, he's carved out a unique path as an influential and shape-shifting presence in 21st century music. As a composer and a pianist across multiple musical communities, Iyer has created an innovative, emotionally resonant body of work over the last 3 decades. His honors include a MacArthur Fellowship, a Doris Duke Performing Artist Award, a United States Artist Fellowship, 3 Grammy nominations, and the Alpert Award in the Arts. His newest albums are last year's Defiant Life, his second suite of duets with visionary composer and trumpeter Wadada Leo Smith, Compassion, a 2024 release featuring his trio with drummer Taishan Sori and bassist Linda May-Han-Oh, Trouble, a composer portrait album comprising 3 of his orchestral works, and Love in Exile, his Grammy-nominated collaboration with Arouj Aftab and Shahzad Ismaili. Vijay is also the Franklin D. and Florence Rosenblatt Professor of the Arts at Harvard University, where he holds joint appointments in the Departments of Music and African and African American Studies. He directs a doctoral program in creative practice and critical inquiry at Harvard. His scholarship, beginning with his dissertation published in 1998, developed a perspective on embodied music cognition that anticipated the so-called embodied turn in music studies. His latest writings appear in the edited volumes Black Art and Aesthetics, the Oxford Handbook of Critical Concepts in Music Theory, and the Handbook on Critical Improvisation Studies, Sounding Together, and the journals Jazz and Culture, Critical Studies in Improvisation, and Behavioral and Brain Sciences. Please, let's give a warm welcome to Vijay Iyer.
Hi, everybody. I asked them not to have a piano on stage, only because that wasn't part of the plan, you know. Now that it's on stage, it's kind of like Chekhov's gun. And it's like, if you see a gun in Act 1, it's probably going to go off in Act 3. So, anyway, humanities people, where you at? I hear you. Okay. That doesn't always go over well with the jazz people. But okay. Glad you. One thing I want to get out of the way is that today is a very special day because the person who just introduced me is celebrating his birthday. So. Unfortunately, he's been saddled with me for the whole day, but I hope things improve later. I'm sincerely grateful to Mark and the many key people in the Frost School of Music and the Center for the Humanities for this very generous invitation, and to all of you for showing up to indulge me today. The title of the talk is Bring the Body in Close, Musicality in Practice. Some of you are probably wondering why I'm not playing the piano today, and others might be wondering why a musician was chosen to give a humanities lecture. And some of you, maybe a handful, might wonder what the humanities refers to. And I'd say that's a pretty good question, which I'm going to try to trouble a little bit today. What I can say is that as a music maker, I've been around musicians and other artists whose concepts, insights, and actions and utterances have at times shaken me to my core. So today, I speak to you from that place. I want to start by acknowledging the moment we're in and bringing in one of the major catalysts in my life, the late, great Imamu Amiri Baraka, poet, activist, scholar, theorist, critic, playwright. That's something he said that hard to argue with. I took that photo, actually, in 2013 at Birdland. He came to see us play, and we miss him. When did it start for you? This sinking realization that each day the world becomes, in some small but significant increment, undeniably and irrevocably worse than the day before. Was it a week ago with the latest tranche of Epstein-related documents reordering our understanding of the world? Or last month with federal agents openly killing Minneapolis residents on the street, part of the current regime's war on its own population? Or maybe last October when you might have seen this image of a lawless federal agent in Berwyn, Illinois, pointing this less lethal weapon at a bystander's face? Or perhaps in August when an anti-vaxxer fired 500 rounds at the headquarters of the CDC in Atlanta, receiving almost no attention? Or was it last June when 2 Minnesota Democratic state legislators and their spouses were all shot in separate incidents on the same day, resulting in 2 deaths and 0 outrage? Or perhaps a year ago with the wanton layoffs of 300,000 federal workers? Or was it November 2024 with that historic political failure of so-called liberalism? Or was it the spring of 2024 as institutional and state actors repeatedly dehumanized, brutalized, and sold out the anti-war activists on our campuses and in our cities? Or was it fall of 2023 as waves of state-sanctioned violence and institutional doublespeak started to corrode our world and expose the hypocrisies of the systems we live under? Or perhaps it was 5 years ago at the height of a pandemic with its horrific, unequally distributed death toll. For some U.S. Gen Z kids, it was the year after the 2018 mass shooting in a high school in Parkland, Florida, a few hours from here, where their months-long effort on gun control failed to produce any tangible results from their elders, who seemed effectively unfazed by their deaths. For others, it was the wave of authoritarianism fueled by online disinformation that started to grip the West about a decade ago. For others still, it was an unrelenting series of police and vigilante murders of black men, women, and children out in the open, increasingly documented by passersby and shared with the world over the past dozen years. For many of us, 2 decades ago, it was the global war on terror, the scale of endless war, and the sinister new sanitizing technology and terminology, the atmosphere of surveillance, state terror, and media-fueled paranoia, the unequal treatment of civilians based on skin color, religion, and national origin. For our descendants, inheritors of a boiling planet, it will have been our utter failure to act on climate change. Over the last 5 centuries, modernity and coloniality have co-constituted each other, forming one system of global plunder, domination, mass murder, and Western self-regard. But this past quarter century, the post-millennium, has been beset by the ruinous folly of elites in pursuit of wealth and power, irrespective of legal scaffolding held within this system or the will of the masses. Maybe the aspects of our world that Christina Sharp has termed the grotesque predate this era and will outlast it. But this accelerated slipping away, this dulling, this unveiling, this cheapening, this crumbling, this continually intensifying violence of humanity's inhumanities, this is the time in which we all live. I'm offering this opening reminder, letting all of this chaos, noise, and anguish into the safety of our gathering because this is what artists do. We are not here to redeem you or even ourselves. We are here to remind you of the abyss and the expanse, the squalor and the abundance, the nothing and the everything, the world beyond your world. At the close of What is Philosophy, Deleuze and Guattari summarized D.H. Lawrence's essay Chaos in Poetry as follows. People are constantly putting up an umbrella that shelters them, and on the underside of which they draw a firmament and write their conventions and opinions. But poets, artists, make a slit in the umbrella. They tear open the firmament itself to let in a bit of free and windy chaos, and to frame in a sudden light a vision that appears through the rent. There are certain sounds that, to use Bloch's phrase, rip open the times, like this for me. The weight of a human heart, sonically transduced in an instant, a single gesture redolent of all that is carried within a human being, a hologram of all that comes to pass among beings, not an escape but a surmounting, not a victory but a defiant livingness. Defiant Life, as you heard, is the title of an album that Mr. Wadada Leo Smith and I released last year. And here's a quote. The liner notes of this album are basically a transcript of me interviewing Mr. Smith, who is 30 years older than me. He's 84. Here's something he said in that conversation. Defiant is a powerful term. The defiant person knows completely and wholeheartedly what's right and what's wrong, and they cannot be persuaded to think any other kind of way. And that defiance matches their action, how they engage with that event or the notion of that event. So it's not just that you disagree, it's a much deeper embodiment of your own, let's say, self-realization and what it means to be human. So at the risk of extreme self-indulgence, or more charitably as a kind of reflexive methodology, I would like to share a short piece. I'm going to share a bunch of my music today in the context of this talk. I would like to start by sharing a short piece by the trumpeter and composer Wadada Leo Smith and myself. This is the third segment of a triptych titled Monumental Impulses. What I would like to do here is reveal a few facets of the work as it is being made. I am loath to speak over music, be it my own or someone else's, but today I want to highlight a style of listening from within and perhaps expose something about the making, the event, as it becomes an object. We created Monumental Impulses in September 2024 for Carrie Mae Weems's work on American monuments, which was itself part of her massive ongoing meta-project of exposure, critique, and reclamation. Just last weekend, actually, I performed with her at Lincoln Center in an event called Contested Sites of Memory on the same topic. In approaching this vexed topic, along with Mr. Smith, we found ourselves focused on three different aspects of monumentality. Part one, building forces, sounds the primary urge to build, to leave a mark on land, to reach for the sky. Part two, forgotten voices, confronts the inevitable tendency of the powerful few who narrate history to, in doing so, erase countless others. And part three, underlying these more male-coded impulses, the need among the living to remember our dead and to let art be, as Teju Cole said, how we mourn together. Our effort with this work was to reclaim and decolonize these processes, or at least interrogate their structuring presence within ourselves. This segment, part three of that triptych, bears the subtitle In Memoriam. It is, in that sense, an elegy, a burdened panegyric, a shared lament. I want you to know before I press play that Mr. Smith and I do not have repertoire, and we never rehearse in any traditional sense. Each musical creation begins from nothing and then proceeds somehow with this uncanny, luminous inevitability. We make these works from nothing, that is, except our individual languages, our mutual oral attunement, and what I would call a shared aesthetic of necessity. A sense which I've learned largely from him across 2 decades of what must be done and why. Our time together from the moment we meet right until the moment we go on stage is most often spent talking about the state of the world, studying histories of liberation, and sharing readings and historical references as a means of grounding ourselves purposefully in our present. And poetry is not a luxury. Audre Lorde writes, "We can train ourselves to respect our feelings and to discipline or transpose them into a language that matches those feelings so they can be shared." Mr. Smith and I share an orientation toward creative co-authorship, one that does not adhere to principles that distinguish among composition, improvisation, practice, performance, or other categories that would serve to embed us in the systems of modernity and coloniality. We do instead what my colleague Aruj Aftab succinctly called live composing. Live composing is a provocatively tense verbal dyad. For composition, as commonly understood, demands the making of objects that, in capitalism's order, must precede and frame and ultimately undermine the moment of liveness. I do not mean to characterize this process as miraculous, but rather to remind you that it's something that we, as human beings, have the capacity to do together. Oops. All right. To say that this is real time isn't enough. This is a joint articulation of some shared truths. A series of composite decisions in a network of interdependence. It begins sometimes with a series of sonic exhalations, caresses, probing the silence before fully stepping into the space. Calls to one another and into the territory, halting and vulnerable but fully intentional, breaks and all. Smith's modulations and amplitude creating their own version of the echoic undulations from the roads. A pattern emerges, a pendular sonic motion that signals we are now walking together. We are not synchronized in sound, but in intent, our actions tracing out counterpoint. Soon, perhaps, a progression reveals itself. We are in a formal module that we've discovered together. A room or a patch of earth with a distinct shape and affordances for moving within it. Suddenly a bridge appears to somewhere, and he steps right across it. I'm struck by how he moves with familiarity across this new terrain. a sage, limning the space with a mute, singing a song we didn't know we knew, name-checking history, memory, pain, and mourning. He ends his account with a long, multiphonic growl. Not a cadence or a relay, but a melting into pure texture. As I play by myself, his body is a satellite dish, receiving on all frequencies. There's a moment or two where he almost joins back in, then stops himself. This action reveals an electrified moment-to-moment engagement, each flash of foresight, conditioned step by step, like a branching of multiverses. Why not now? Because it isn't time yet. Why later? Because it will be time. Then when the moment comes, why is it again with this guttural moan, this bottoming out of melody or of song, these melancholy gestures of emptiness? A late-breaking detail, a low electronic drone from another source comes by surprise, but supports his resolution. He sustains a clarion tone along with it and registers in that hexis a small sting of recognition. Thank you. Maybe when we get to the next video, we could dim the lights. It might work a little better. The question perhaps isn't why did that happen, but rather what else could have happened? The only other option always is nothing else at all. We only do what happens because only it is meant to happen. Accepting this truth means surrendering to an intention beyond ourselves, a kind of spiritual atemporality. Simply put, we are channeling together, receiving this music from elsewhere. Did we compose it, or did it compose us? There's also something about this single-take process with its indelible, uneditable material trace that feels something like etching, a defiantly anti-ephemeral resistant residue. The thing is made, all the while the act of making the thing is the thing. As if in a time travel paradox, we bear witness to our own births. Mr. Smith and I are of radically distinct histories, born 30 years apart. Him into segregated Mississippi of 1941, me into a model minority type family in 1971 New York. And we are both interested in what it means then to use this co-channeling process to interrogate the intimacies of 4 continents that brought us to this moment, to stand up gingerly in this haunted place, bearing sonic witness to the unbearable monumentality and coloniality of being while American, to peel back this clouded bait and switch discourse of civil rights and immigration, to sit instead with the burdened legacies of domination, cruelty, subjection, and survival, to build and be our own counter memorials, to carve our names into their walls. The day after the 2016 US election, which felt something like the one we experienced in 2024, I traveled with Mr. Smith to play for an audience of mostly white, mostly liberal, visibly shaken concert goers in Seattle. Spending that particular day with Smith was grounding and clarifying. Unlike many of the people around us, he effused an aura that day that was not one of shock, surprise, or even disappointment, but rather a serene composure. The sureness that one feels when one's predictions are affirmed once again. It was not news to him that this nation, under whose systems his people had suffered for centuries, could still behave in this way, that its electorate could choose bullying and overt bigotry over a shallow pretense of compassion and parsimoniously distributed human rights. The liberal narrative of progress, the reformist notion of making a more perfect union by diversifying the position of commander-in-chief of the most lethal army in the world, was revealed as a fundamentally irredeemable premise. What must matter more, after all, representation or black lives? I've been hearing the word human used in some troublesome ways recently. Far from a biological given, human has been a contested category since its invention. And I'm not a scholar of this kind of stuff, I'm just riffing here, but someone may contest what I'm about to say, but human from earlier hemo from Proto-Italic, hemo from Proto-Indo-European, hemo, as is sometimes translated as earthling, from this word earth, whence the Latin word humus or humus. Human, homo, humus. There's a derivational relationship between the words for both earth and man, between the word human and the word soil. Or perhaps more clearly, between person and place. It's a conception that predates a widespread understanding of the earth as a planet. This common translation of as earthling is maybe an anachronism. In other words, the word human predates the idea of the universal. The word human, I would argue, predates the idea of the universal. In the imperial Latin, it arguably refers not to planet Earth, but to the span of empire, the presumed colonial linguistic dominion of the speaker. Philosophy, which is a progenitor of the humanities, traffics in universals. The insinuation is omnipresent. It's embedded in that first person plural, or more insidiously in the passive voice that pervades philosophical and political and scientific writing. A we, a fuzzily defined category, this plural subjectivity, is too often taken to stand in for our entire species, everyone who ever lived, a staggering 12-digit number of people. Music theory, by contrast, tends to more efficiently conceal its universals, largely by bypassing discourses of the human almost entirely. Its most pervasive pronouns are it and its. Bodies are occasionally theorized, but people's lives aren't. And taking for granted the thingness of music, this discipline tends to hide its dependence on the laboring human beings who are thingified to make music's ontology possible. Music is taken as an object or a substance that comes to us, not from us, through some assemblage of people and objects whose details and lives don't matter. This ontological claim presumes a uniformity among listening subjects, a supposition that we will all apprehend objective truths about the musical surface in the same way. This is the implied us of music theory and analysis. What is left out of such universalist gestures, which members of the human species have had their humanity effectively revoked through discourse, law, borders, and communal violence, to the point where our sense of us fails to include them? The collection of fields that go under the name of the humanities have been slow to confront genocide or war crimes or forced starvation or the killing of tens of thousands of children or the recently revised 6-digit estimate of the Palestinian death toll. Scholars are careful not to address how the category of the human being might have reached its limits. The unserious pretense of our shared humanity is repeatedly mobilized to excuse and conceal actual crimes against humanity. I find myself instead wanting to listen and to build common cause with those hurled out of the category of the human. The uncounted, the uncountable, the abject, the dispossessed, the refused, the barred, the exiled, the tortured, the fled, the encamped, the removed, the bulldozed, the entombed in rubble, the crushed, the maimed, the many, many lost, the human beings at the edge of existence, whom some of the most powerful state and non-state actors in the world seek to erase from existence. What does the world sound like from outside the abject boundary of the category of the human being? In listening and thinking with such burdened, unacknowledged subjectivities, I turn to the late Martinican poet and theorist Edouard Glissant, his theorizing of relation for its continued relevance, potency, and disruptiveness. In a 2009 conversation with Manta Jawara, Glissant summarized it as follows. I say that relation is made up of all the differences in the world, and we shouldn't forget a single one of them, even the smallest. If you forget the tiniest difference in the world, well, relation is no longer relation. Now, what do we do when we believe this? We call into question in a formal manner the idea of the universal. The universal is a sublimation, an abstraction that enables us to forget small differences. We drift upon the universal and forget these small differences. Relation is wonderful because it doesn't allow us to do that. There's no such thing as a relation made up of big differences. Relation is total, otherwise it's not relation. So that is why I prefer the notion of relation to the notion of the universal. Avowedly or not, cognitive science, music theory, philosophy, and other related disciplines reach for universals. As soon as you find counterexamples to these so-called universals, Glissant's small differences, you have exposed universality's limits, and the original universalist claim needs to yield and evolve. What Black Studies, or as Moten and others have dubbed it, Black Study, aims to do is to articulate Black perspectives on thought, language, culture, politics, psychology, and human flourishing. Black Study doesn't simply consist of turning the academic lens on Black people or Black cultural productions as objects of study. Black Study is the Black subject's intentional study of the world. Fred Moten, in his opening chapter to his early work, In the Break, his first book, writes this tumbling sentence, which I come back to often. The animative materiality, the aesthetic, political, sexual, and racial force of the ensemble of objects that we might call Black performances, Black history, Blackness, is a real problem and a real chance for the philosophy of the human being, which would necessarily bear and be irreducible to what is called, or what somebody might hope to someday call, subjectivity. This needed to be said because of the large-scale revoking of personhood of Black and brown people, the removal from the category of the human being that was and is enacted by genocide, colonization, displacement, and enslavement. The same category of the human being we think we mean when we invoke either the humanities or the category of music. It was for this reason that I began to question music as a workable category, because it presupposes and takes for granted the category of the human being, a political formation whose boundaries are continually contested and troubled. Are trans rights human rights? Do Black Lives Matter? Can a person be illegal? Do Palestinian men count as civilians? These questions of today force specific communities to the edge of the human category, and I claim that the category of the human, that contentious, fraught, conceptual battlefield, is also the category of music. What I mean is that, far from being ontologically secure, music too is an ideological battleground, a space that is not universally agreed upon, but is discursively constructed and policed to make it seem as if it were so. The music made by people on the edges of the category of the human, the abject, the dispossessed, the incarcerated, the enslaved, the illegal, the disabled, the marginal. That music is similarly ejected outside of the disciplinary category of music. Okay, the rest of this talk is not a huge bummer, so I'm going to try to turn it around. My earliest musical memory, indeed perhaps my earliest memory at all, is from age 3 or 4. This is a 1974 Spinet Baldwin piano, by the way, very similar to the one that we had in the house. I had recently started violin lessons at age 3, and my beloved older sister Pratima, then 6 or 7, had started on piano. My parents had gotten her a modest spinet like this one, on which she would work through her Suzuki repertoire. Her little piano loomed grandly over me and my 1/16 size violin. Similarly, I found myself looking up to her as my sentinel and guide through childhood. One day I heard her playing something I did not recognize from the Suzuki practice tapes. She was clanging around in what was probably A minor, It involved a lot of white keys and sustain pedal. At some point, either that time or the next, I toddled up beside her and clanged in counterpoint. Together we got the instrument resonating and shaking until it felt like it might tip over. I called this a musical memory. Is that the right word for it? Little me, together with one of my favorite people in the world, engaged in collaborative exploratory play, forming sonic experience, making a joyful noise, surely breaking some rules. Even then, I must have thought, could this be music too? Instantly, I was hooked, and even to this day, every time I play the piano, some part of me is transported back to that ecstatic, timeless, transgressive moment from childhood. You can call that my origin story. Revisiting this scene of sonic social life, my sisters and my cacophonous clanging, brings me to the following question. How does something we might call musicality emerge in such unlikely moments from objects or actions that do not yet seem to belong in the category we know as music? How does ordinary experience become musical? Back in 2020, aiming to pry open the category of music, I posed a question on Twitter. That's what it was called back then, following the form of a popular meme. What's not music, but feels like music to you? This affective prompt received an avalanche of responses from around the planet. Cooking, a really good conversation, longing, dancing, weather, grandparents, people being insulted in Yoruba, construction sites, water droplets, door creaks, astrological planet alignments, white noise, different tones, my young son's gentle snore, my older son's footsteps, my daughter's laughter, the wind through desiccating leaves, dogs barking, the unfolding of an exquisite meal, shafts of sunlight through slow-moving clouds, astrology, astrophysics, poetry, the crunch of leaves on a crisp Chicago autumn day, looking deeply in the eyes of a lover, traffic, the groove a washing machine or dishwasher gets into, the ocean, love, memories, roller coasters, touch, thought, everything. Hundreds of people from around the world offering examples of what feels like music, illuminating the contested edges of the category, tracing out a larger space of musical mattering, affectively charged, attending to sensory experience. These included human and non-human actions, complex sensations, emotions, thoughts, and meaningful social relations. The category of music encompasses many behaviors, but is also surrounded by a vast sea of experiences that feel like they belong in the category too. These examples reveal that music as you know it, that is, music as a concept specific to the West, does not cover the range of phenomena that we experience as musical. So rather than pursue a definitive question like what is music, we can ask more inclusively, let's say, what in the realm of human experience might feel musical? How and why? As any affect theorist will tell you, feelings are not trivial. They are somatic activations at the intersection of biology, neuroanatomy, and culture. Feelings link private experience to public life, the intimate to the systemic. As these tweets show, virtually any experience can feel like music to somebody, and they cannot be proven wrong. What if we say that music is felt into being? What if we treat the category of music not as one that closes or coheres, but instead as a sphere of experience opening out endlessly to human possibility? All of this has led me to a consideration not of music per se, but of musicality. How or when music establishes its own musicalness, how and why to whom human action becomes musical. So let us repurpose this strange word, musicality, as a critical concept, opening up the category of music as continually being made and remade. Let's say for now that musicality denotes an emergent quality, establishing musicalness or becoming musical. When we call something musical, we confer a special value on it, much more rare and important than mere music, that ubiquitous substance that wallpapers modern life. Musicality means that this moment matters. That's me, I said that. It's an entirely subjective and culturally specific activation, an affective relation with the sonorous actions of other beings or objects. Musicality emerges in innumerable ways, only some of which we can imagine today. This has a lot in common with Vivian Luong's important Deleuzian intervention on music loving. She wrote, "We could approach the practice of music analysis as an enactment of love, of affective and productive flows between and within numerous bodies and things." Then we can start to pay attention to how different musicalities arise. Musicalities, plural, are embodied, which is to say affective, temporal relations among beings and objects, not just sound making, but sonic mattering. Our domain of study should be musicalities, humankind's varying modes of sonic relation and sonic mattering, rather than music, that vexed object or substance or action or event. Musicalities emerge not through obvious aesthetic judgments or scientific facts, but rather through a plurality of dynamic, speculative, affectively charged ritual relations, liminal zones of experience whereby human beings across the eons have sought to create and commune, to hail and be hailed, to hold and be held, to lose themselves and be remade, to become part of something larger than themselves. Musicalities then are continually being unmade and remade across humankind's thousands of centuries. What Sylvia Wynter would call our genres of being human together, our many scenes of sonic social life. Okay, I have two musical examples that in total are about a half hour, but I could just play one, depending, I don't want to take too long, it's already a bit late, but do we have that kind of time, or you sure? Well, we'll do one. Should I do the longer one or the shorter one? Do the long one. Okay, maybe I'll do that. Jumping ahead. Okay. Is diaspora a form of melancholy? What does it contain? Homesickness, shame, disbelonging, uncertainty, alienation, intergenerational post-colonial grief, a sinking feeling in the U.S.'s long war on terror, that the world you inhabit might turn on you, deny your humanity. Vocalist Aruj Aftab came to the U.S. from Pakistan at the turn of the millennium to study at Berklee College of Music, and soon found herself in a post-9/11 landscape of suspicion, surveillance, and the new style of Islamophobia that's shaped today's systemically anti-Muslim world. Shahzad Ismaili is a Pakistani-American multi-instrumentalist, born in 1972 with a rare genetic disorder that left him physically vulnerable and thus doubly outcast, who found his way intuitively into music as a mitigating force. My presence among them as the child of immigrants from the other side of an unhealed partition felt somehow renaturalized in our shared New York South Asian diaspora. When the three of us first converged on stage in 2018 in New York, there was no plan and no repertoire, but also no fear, no doubt, no second guessing, only a feeling of arrival, as though from the first breath this music already existed, fully formed, and was simply showing up before us. Aruj chose to deploy pre-existing fragments of lyric, to use them as substrates for melody, vowels, supporting tones, consonants offering means of attack. The rest was conjured from, again, what felt like nothing, in that same process that she named live composing, a unique way of claiming our shared roles as creators, on par with other more official, more fixed modes of composition, as well as challenging the predominant devaluing of improvisation. The best bands start with a feeling, and this particular group named our formative emotion, love in exile. Perhaps to name that shared space we didn't know we could ever have. A surprising feeling of being held and accepted as we are, with a mutual understanding and tenderness that we didn't know we'd earned. Here, in a setting you'll recognize, we reconstruct from first principles a piece that wound up on our album. The album was called Love in Exile, and the piece is called Eyes of the Endless, which features Aruj's gloss on this particular lyrical couplet taken from a century-old Tumri that itself has been the subject of dozens of historic performances and recordings. I won't pretend to be able to pronounce that, so I'll let you read. But here we are in this place that you all know. It begins with some unsynchronized low-end surges and thuds in a lumbering quasi-tempo, more like breathing. Each slightly different in tone from the one before. I offer some high register shimmers. Is this time or events? spread across a full half minute. Each word a full breath.
Je sais
Punctuated by wordless syllables as if the music needed to exceed the lyric. Then a handmade echo of the vocal melody. Then another. Every sound is a choice made in that instant that immediately becomes a feature in the landscape. Each gesture generates a structure. Gravity and lightness, cracked earth and open sky. Not merely droning and not a hollow darkness, but one that breathes and staggers, whispers and growls, its color and weight in constant flux. little more than halfway through a shift to a new area, a new sound world that breathes and shimmers a little differently, the day to our night. This provides an opening for the second line of the couplet, one that sounds the exalted restlessness, the unmooring that love brings. Not as a curse that the lyric implies, but as a delicious struggle. Joy in arriving, a savoring of this glow of presence. Description, ecstasy, coming back to that first lyric about those eyes. Those eyes full, overflowing, endless.
Oh
my piano in intended denouement somehow spins back up and also overflows. Shuddering drunkenly in recognition, like the poet's name, Faiz, abundance. Thanks. Yeah, we decided to just play one song for the entire Tiny Desk concert, which, thank you. To transduce feelings, to allow the body's own ebbs and flows of affect to resound, is to take our mutual embodiment seriously, to acknowledge the musicality of these unpredictable yet familiar forms, the way feelings take the time they take. Again, feelings are not neutral, they are bodily activations at the intersection of physiology and culture. They are how experience, memory, history, and relation show up in our actions, our perceptions, our thought, and our discourse. So to wrap it up, finally, I'll skip the other example. If the category of music was historically aligned with the systemic, violent rearrangements of the human category, then we must look to Black and queer and decolonial and feminist theorists who have cultivated restorative models of care and repair. Again, as Sylvia Wynter puts it, being human as praxis. Following their lead, we understand musicality as a dynamic, intimate sociality. Therefore, we must imagine a pivotal position for musicality, indeed for many possible musicalities, in any praxis of being human. I think of humankind's endless capacity to eject or abandon entire populations from its own category, humanity's inhumanities, the kind that we are living through under today's genocidal fascism. What can the humanities amount to in the face of this? Lisa Lowe and Chris Manjapra write towards a different humanities. We propose an analytic of relation or a mode of study that attends to the contradictory and tensile entanglements that are the condition for different modes of social organization in the longer time of the global. The humanities could instead be a way of thinking, reading, writing, and critically reflecting on the plasticity of the human not as fixed form, but as a shifting relation itself. A different humanities based on the analytic of relationality invites a total rethinking of discipline and method. If today's critical humanities interrogate the category of the human across these histories, I'm asking similarly for a critical musicalities that might study the emergence and contingent relationality of music making as it has occurred across our violent half millennium and beyond, and how it might occur in our present and in our shared futures. But most of all, I offer that it is through pursuing creative music making, through cultivating our own speculative musicalities, that we might arrive at liberatory concepts for living within humanities in humanities. It happens as a matter of course. Emancipatory theories of music emerge from practice. This finally is what we must do, what we must teach, and what we must foster in students and in ourselves, to practice a defiant life in music. Thank you. This would have gone better with drinking. We could have been, but maybe that can be the next step here. But I'm supposed to maybe take some questions if you guys aren't tired.
Yeah, we have time for a few questions. If there's questions from the audience, we have a couple folks that are actually help with microphones, so please just identify yourself and we'll get you amplified so that everyone can hear you.
Yes, hi.
Thank you so much for your beautiful talk and for creating such a gentle and relational atmosphere through to your talk. My question is related to how you think of discipline, and especially being an academic and working within the borders of discipline whilst you're talking about oppression and art and these themes that haven't traditionally come into traditional disciplines. Sorry, let me rephrase myself. Relationality and challenging borders of discipline. How does that happen in your classroom, in the spaces around you? Yeah, does the question make sense? I can try again. How do you challenge borders of discipline and create relationality and that pedagogy in your classrooms?
Okay, that's good. I got it now. I got it. Took 3 tries, but I get it now. It was really me who just needed, like, I don't know, a couple of takes. I think I tried to gesture towards it in my last few sentences, which is that music making brings us to a place that is not disciplined in that sense that, it's not, I'm not just saying that there's no knowledge involved or that there isn't rigor to it, but that actually what it tends to do is push against the frame and exceed the frame that is placed on it. And so it's through that practice, I find, and particularly just creating a space for artists to do that, and to make stuff together. In particular, like to collaborate in the making usually means that you have to reach outside of your own conceits or your own ways of doing in order to face the challenge of co-creation. And then also to collaboratively face a question together, is from different vantages, which we are always representing. I think that the challenge is how do you do that without, again, letting go of something like rigor. And I think the real challenge for any of us is to cultivate productive questions that can last and last and last and can keep giving us well, basically, what I remember from my graduate years and what I try to help my students discover for themselves is what are the questions that are going to last you a lifetime. And those questions will, if they're the right kind, will, because for example, my questions in the 1990s when I was doing a PhD had to do with bodies. What is the sound of bodies in motion? Because that's what music is made of, right? So what if we take that fact seriously? Where does that carry us? And it turns out it carried me across a lot of different systems of thought, different ways of knowing. So it's that kind of question that can animate a life, I think.
This is only partially related, so first of all, thank you for that, because I'm soaking all that in. I am so curious in all of, not that I thought it was a bummer, it's hard to be bummed about just saying the thing that is happening, but what's brought you joy lately? What is the most joyous thing you've experienced lately?
Thank you for asking, because I didn't want you to think that I'm no fun. I know it was I believe that there's something productive in the ordeal. So I kind of put you through something, I understand. But no, I do, I'm lots of fun, you guys. No, no, but I will say that actually, music making gives me the most joy of anything. It's like, it has been that way since that experience when I was 3 that I told you about. It still is that experience every time. Daphnis can relate. He and I have been making music together for a long time, and in fact, we have an album coming out together later this year. He's one of the great drummers of all time, Daphnis Prieto. I hope you know that. That there's this joy in discovery and this joy in communion, and it transcends just ourselves. It's that actually we're making contact. We're making something that somehow matters to somebody, and that mattering is a space of joy. And that, time and again, is revelatory, and it's kind of almost like a drug, actually. Like we just want it, we want more. So that is, not to kind of bring it back to the same place, but it is kind of what gets me up in the morning. I can say that for sure.
Hi.
Hello.
Wonderful talk, very truthful, real. You started your talk though by mentioning that you've been collaborating with Carrie Mae Weems, a fantastic artist who embodies. I've seen her lecture, talk. just a poet through and through. She started with poetry, went to visual art. So she occupies that space, that liminal space that you have referred to throughout your own talk.
Yeah.
So could you just talk a bit more about the advantages of that liminal space between language and visual and music and truth?
Yeah, I can try. I was just trying to talk about this recently. I mean, I've been fortunate to know her for sorry to say it this way. This sounds like a huge flex, and I don't mean it this way, but we got MacArthur's the same year, and that's how I met her. So it was in 2013. That's just how I met her, literally. Hey, Daphnis has one too, okay? So, and then she just started like inviting me to stuff. She often, when she has an event or an exhibit of her own work, she will use that as an occasion to gather, to bring people together, to convene. She even calls them convenings. And so that, I remember it was that same winter at the Guggenheim, she had a show and she said, I'm putting together a weekend of events. They'll just be happening all day and I want you to start it, to kick it off. The artist Terry Atkins had just passed then, and so we were just in the space again of mourning, but also of celebration that we had all gathered. And so this space, this kind of like, hey, let's do something together. We don't know what yet, but it's gonna, Also I spent a lot of time working with poets. In the 90s, I worked with a bunch of hip hop artists, and then early 2000s, I got to work very steadily with the great Amiri Baraka. And being in the world with him and being on stage with him and hearing him hear us through text, like in the sense that he would deliver his words like a musician. He heard the give and take with what we were doing and is actually one of the greatest performers I've ever experienced. And I think then I also did these projects with a poet named Mike Ladd, and finding ways for music and poetry to coexist and to speak to each other and animate each other and not just be a backup band, but actually support and illuminate or create a counterpoint with what the text is offering, to kind of bring us to... Actually, last weekend I gave a talk about a project I did with the poet Robin Cost Lewis and the artist Julie Meritu. And the piece presented a kind of like... Julie made a film that was footage of a painting, and it's like you are having this... You don't know that it's a painting at the beginning. You just see these kind of flashes of color and sort of reflections off of a surface, but you don't know what it is. And they seem disparate. And we were in this, we were on stage with this large screen behind us that's kind of became almost like a score for us. And the way I experienced it, the phrase I came up with to talk about it last weekend was like a unified field theory of sensory experience. It was like the sonic gestures, the visual gestures, the lyrical gestures all somehow were part of the same language. So we somehow got to that place. It doesn't always work that way, but that was something that can happen, that you can surrender to that kind of logic, Do one more. Yes.
Hi, my name is Joseph. I really enjoyed your presentation, Mr. Ayer.
Thank you.
When watching the presentation from the NPR Tiny Desk, question came to my mind that was, what inspires you to, or what guides you to pick your collaborations with different musicians? I'm curious about that.
Thank you. That's a good question. The one I didn't show you was a trio with Taishan Sori and Linda Mehan O. But that's also out there. You can hear. But the reason I brought that up is because all of them have in common that they begin with a kind of feeling. I remember, like with that trio I just showed you with Aruj and Shahzad, the way our first performance went, it was like I had curated a bunch of different ad hoc ensembles like that hadn't really met before. And we didn't really get a chance to rehearse or even sound check together. And Shahzad actually was coming from Seattle, and he came from the airport and came straight to the stage, and then we were on stage and we played. And whatever happened in that moment, we played for about 20 minutes. And it had the same kind of feeling that this one had, that it was like that we didn't know where any of it came from. We barely knew each other, but there was this feeling that this was supposed to happen. Like it felt preordained somehow. It felt like it was meant to be. And that's a mystical experience that I'll never be able to explain. But I can say that is how I choose my collaborators. And it's like, you can't exactly bottle that and sell it, but I've been fortunate in that way to have these kind of, I can only call them spiritual experiences working with others, where I feel like we're tapping into something that's much larger than ourselves. And that space of feeling is the right place. The trio with Linda and Taishan, I've worked with both of them a lot over the years, but in 2019, we were up teaching at Banff in Canada, and it was the end of the program, the night before, the penultimate, the second to last night, and we had all been working really hard, and I said, hey, you guys want to just play a trio set to blow off some steam? We didn't really have a plan. We had some repertoire that we knew, and we just got up there and blazed through a set. And it was actually like in the cafe. It was we were playing like in where everyone has dinner, so it was like this kind of extremely informal and kind of like unofficial, And again, it was like right afterwards, I said, hey, you guys want to make a record? And they're like, yeah, so that's what happened. Like 2 months later, we made a record, and that's Uneasy. So it's often like this kind of like, this feels like something, and I don't know what, but we need to follow it. Let's follow it where it leads us. So hope that helps. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for being here. And happy birthday to Mark. Happy birthday to you. Hey, hi. It's very nice to meet you. Oh, good. I've heard a lot about you already. And I just got here yesterday.
So she's in my
Uh-huh.
and she's also become friends with Paolo.
Good.
make sure that you all met. So
Yeah.
I'll step out of the way.
Oh, I don't have nothing to say except I hope to hear you someday. I hear you've been shredding.